This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Just for the Spell of It. And one of the things I've noticed in our podcast and Gary's blogs is that a lot of the training that you talk about for Scrabble, and I've said this before, can apply to just about any part of our life. So anybody who's listening to this, you almost have to make a game out of learning and improving yourself. And I've taken many of your points, Gary, and I've applied them to other parts of my life, except for this week where I'm, forgetting everything I've learned and just sitting on pins and needles as we finish this election week. But hopefully we can be taken off track and we can talk about different ways of learning. So,
okay, that sounds good. And thinking about the topic that I wanted to cover today, I guess it can be best compared to time management. It's something that I learned about in detail. Oh, it's been a long time. It's probably been 30, 40 years ago. There was a period of time where one of the big things to do was to get involved in self-help activities.
right.
And there were a lot of seminars available and classes available for people to take to improve themselves. And I got caught up in that quite a bit. I attended one seminar that made a huge impression on me. It was called the Self-Esteem Institute. I'm not sure where I originally heard about that, but I was living in Detroit, the suburbs, and it was taking place in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I took as many as 3 or 4 different seminars. They each, though, had a component of preparing yourself, how to use your time efficiently, how to organize yourself. It focused on things that people spend a lot of time doing or no time at all and just jump into an activity, and then taught us how to stand back, plan out the activity, do one of the things that I talk about all the time, which is spaced repetition. And I really got into it. I got into it to the point where I taught one of their classes. I taught a class called Adventures in Attitudes. And I found it fascinating. I had been a teacher before I did this activity, but it really grabbed my imagination, and I could visually look at people and have a small conversation, no matter what their interest was, and see how this could fit in with their lifestyle and give them great benefit. The most amazing thing that I did while I was teaching this class was I had it out there. I was going to be a mentor for people, and I was going to make myself available, teaching components of Adventures and Attitudes. And I put a simple 2-3 letter ad there in a local newspaper. If you think you could benefit from this, call. And my price was fairly modest at the time. For me to take the Adventures in Attitudes and the Self-Esteem Institute for a weekend, which also included lodging and food and all
Sure.
of that. But the class was as much as $5,000 for the weekend.
Wow. Okay.
And people were spending money like that, especially if they could justify it connected to their business
Sure.
activity. So at the time, I was very fortunate. I had that kind of money available from the private school that I ran. And I went and I took the class, and now I'm ready to share it with others. I think I charged the lady about $500, and it was for a series of maybe 5 sessions. And at the beginning, I it was very important that you state your goal. You state it very specifically so that both you and I have a very clear understanding of what you want to do.
Okay.
She was in sales related to the auto industry. She um, worked as a third party. She didn't work directly for Chrysler or GM, but she was selling them components that they used.
Okay.
And her biggest sale prior to starting with me had been in the neighborhood of $100,000, which I found very impressive. And she talked about how she was competing with men. And in the 80s, women creating in a man's field uh, was even more difficult than it is today. And we made a whole list of things to define what we needed to do. Well, you would imagine that everything we needed to do was sales. And my background was not sales at
Sure.
all, but the program that I had was much broader than just funneling in to a single component. And among the things that I conveyed to her were things to help her build her own self esteem, to create a script that she could know backwards and forwards. She didn't have to sit there and think about what she was going to say next.
Okay.
Um, to have a 20-minute speech, a 20-second speech, a minute and a half speech, and a 5-minute speech, because at different points in time, depending which member of the company that you're talking with, you might only have 30
Sure.
seconds. So we went over all of these things, and I had her going to the library and reading books by certain authors about sales and so on. In between our talks, which were approximately a week apiece, she would go about her normal activities, putting these into practice. At the end of the third week, she called me about an hour early for our talk, and she was bouncing off the wall. She had made a sale for $500,000,
Wow. Wow.
5 times the best she had ever done. Now, I didn't get any bigger fee than my original $500.
Right.
Uh, I got a very warm feeling within me, and I was equally excited that I led her to that. And it really became very clear to me that I hadn't I hadn't taught her anything as much as led her down the road to do something that she obviously already knew. But being her mentor, she was now accountable to me.
Right.
And that's a component that a lot of us don't set up for ourselves when we're trying to achieve something fantastic. Uh, we have an idea, we know the end where we want to end up, and we do know many of the pieces that we need to do along the way, but some of them seem so simple that we don't really think about them and focus on them in our attempt to get to the final goal.
Right.
We do a lot of them, but we don't refine the pieces. We don't develop the 30-second, the minute and a half, the 5 minute. And even if we already have done that and we know that, we don't necessarily use those pieces of knowledge effectively
Right.
because we're not looking at that. We're only looking to beat 100,000. We're not thinking 500,000. We might be thinking 150,000. So anyways, that's what occurred. And that brings me to what I want to talk to everyone about today. And it's how to get to our goal from where we are now to the final goal. Don't set the goal too small. Don't set the goal so mammoth that you're not going to be able to get there.
Sure.
So if she had set a goal of $1 million sale, she may have accomplished the 500,000 and then uh, not been satisfied, or could even feel like a failure, even though it would be so monumental over what she had done to date. Um, and I think we all do that sort of thing. And the mentor is really important. Now, let's say you're not um, going to be taking a class where you can make the teacher your mentor. Um, However, you can assign a mentor. It could be your partner, could be your mentor. However, in choosing your mentor, choose somebody who is equally as excited for you. It,
Absolutely.
it could be a good friend. It doesn't have to be somebody with knowledge of the field that you're going into. I didn't know the first thing about selling to automobile companies. Um, and I was being an active participant in giving her suggestions. It doesn't even have to be that. It can be you just sharing with your mentor, your assigned mentor, um, having a phone call with your friend once a week or
Right.
every few days and reporting. You're sort of holding yourself accountable to the person that you're working with.
Right.
So that is an enormously important component. Now, as far as Scrabble goes, I have this class that I've talked about, Scrabble 101, and my interaction with my students, it's me being their mentor.
Right.
Um, there are a lot of good players who have become good totally on their own But in my opinion, most of them have missed some components because they were only looking through their own eyes. When you have another set of eyes seeing where you're going, um, I can tell right away what's missing. In the matter of 1 or 2 sessions, I can find out what's missing. One of the stories that I've written about and talked about was my dear friend who passed away a year ago, Maliha Mahmood. Maliha came from the Philippines, and she learned English as she was growing up when she lived in with a group of nuns. And one of the things they used to teach her English was the game of Scrabble.
Interesting.
So she felt excited about Scrabble. She was not a great Scrabble player when I first met her. Um, and she really wanted to learn to become a really good Scrabble player. And she came to me quite by accident because her husband must have read a blurb about me somewhere. I was going out and speaking in front of groups, and I produced my own events at bookstores where I gave a talk on the secrets of Scrabble champions. Well, Arshad is his name. He tracked me down and he said his wife loves Scrabble. Would I be willing to include her in my group? Well, I said, certainly I would. And he being a Muslim man, um, he was very protective of his wife.
Sure.
He didn't want her just going out being with a bunch of strange people, some that might have other designs on her. I invited him to bring her to my club. The first time he came on his own without her. And he sat in the back in one corner and he walked over to another corner. And while my friends and I were playing Scrabble with one another, he was looking at our board and he mingled with us in between games. The next time or 2 times later, he finally brought her. And you could just feel the excitement that she had about playing this game. Well, English being a second language to her, she was struggling to have conversations. She could speak English, but I would bet her vocabulary may have been 1,000 to 3,000 words, things that you could get by with to live your life here.
Sure.
She had been in the States for quite some time, but she learned to live her life with what do you need to go out to dinner? What do you need to go to the store? She worked in her husband's office as a secretary, so she had all that down pat. And the first time she came, she was typically one of those people. Is that a word? Is that a word? Because we see Scrabble jargon, it doesn't look like words at all.
Right.
Well, she took to studying very hard, and she became very good in respects to playing the game of Scrabble. She became good, but she wasn't winning, and she wouldn't always play the high scoring tiles on the hotspots on the board, even though I've told her about it and it was part of the class. And it really made me kind of nuts. Where new people coming to our club, they might come a half a dozen times And if they weren't making progress in terms of getting higher scores or winning, they'd stop coming. They'd become frustrated. And I understood that, and I kept looking for a way to help people become better faster. Well, as long as I worked with Maliha, at one point she had come 3 years every week on Tuesday night, and she hadn't won a game. Can you imagine doing that for 3 years, never winning,
No,
still coming? Uh, She was phenomenal in terms of her just coming back and forth, that sort of thing. I spent the last several weeks of that last year looking at the board she was playing. All of a sudden, it hit me. She was creating designs with her words.
huh?
Malia was very artistic. She painted in oils, she did sketches. She was miraculous as an artist. When she was playing Scrabble, if the word played somewhere, but it wasn't aesthetically pleasing, she wouldn't play it.
Interesting. Interesting.
And I couldn't see it for the longest time. And then all of a sudden I saw it and I kind of held myself back from saying it. And I watched her next move. And she did it again. And there were these wonderful designs on the board that I was not aware of until I was. Once you're aware of something, you
Sure.
can then see it happening again and again. And because her motivating factor up till that point was the aesthetics, and I wasn't tuned in, I couldn't even figure out what was going on. So, as to make it the story shorter, when I saw it and I shared it with her, she just broke up laughing. And I said, Malia, you want to become good at this game, you want to win, you have to give that up. And it was a battle within her
Right.
to do that. And oh, at the end, she was playing bingos all the time. And most often when you play a bingo, it's a long word, so it disturbs the aesthetics on the board.
Interesting.
Yeah. So uh, when you're working with someone as your mentor, they may see things, and hopefully they will see things. Uh, and even as you describe your growth to them, you'll see additional things. Now, where do you begin in developing your regimen? The first thing that I tell people is go get a calendar. And some of the things are just very basic. Some people study haphazardly. Get a calendar, think about your schedule, and pick some times that have some regularity to it. And then hold yourself accountable. If you think you can only manage it 3 times a week, fine, commit to those 3 times. If you want to do a shorter amount of time every day, do it that way. If you want to do it for a longer period of time, just once a week, do it that way. But you have to make a commitment to yourself and then follow through on it. Decide where you're going to do it. Don't do it in your recliner chair one day, at the kitchen table the next. Create some habits for yourself and create some guidelines in terms of where you're going to study, and then do it that way all the time. Next, make a list of the skills that you want to master. Now, if you're a beginning player, make a list of all the skills that you're going to need to accomplish. So, what would some skills be? Um, you have to know the two-letter words. And I wouldn't say, and, and I'd write these all down.
Sure.
I wouldn't say become better at the two-letter words. I would say something like master all 107 two-letter words. Give yourself specific goals in terms of the skill.
Okay.
All right. So now we have two-letter words. You're going to want to expand your vocabulary. So you might say something, expand my vocabulary by 10 words a week, by 50 words a week, by whatever. And then you would put down, how do you intend to do that? I'm going to look up 10 words a week in the dictionary. Um, I'm going to do today 10 words with A, tomorrow 10 words with B. Be as specific as you can, and then plug that into your regimen. Um, if you have any questions along the way, ask.
Sure, I will.
Yeah, and the folks at home, if you're listening to this, make some notes for yourself about any questions that come up and send me an email. I'll be very happy to respond. Once you complete your whole list, put them in some order of priority. What's the thing that you really need to do first? Where am I really missing out? It might be um, playing words for more points using the hotspots. Now, the realization that might be something to you, and then the doing it might be two different things. Maybe you've known that right along, but you haven't been doing it. Or let's say you have 5 words to a possible bingo on your rack, and 2 of the words are an H and a W that are both worth 4 points each. And you might be able to play the word how, hitting it onto a hot spot that might create 40 points, let's say. But here you're holding on to it because you want to get your bingo, which you may or may not get.
Right.
And so uh, when you bring your attention to it, you'll go ahead and do it. And experiment with that for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and see how it might alter your score in the game. One important thing that I think you need to have on your list is how to play your blanks and your S's. The blank is worth 0 points, but it's like a wild card. It is usually the key. If I have a blank, I'm now more likely to create a bingo than if I didn't have a blank. If I use that blank just to play any word, then if I played how and made the blank an O, even getting 40 points, it might seem, wow, that's very good. However, you need to change the way you think. You need to change the way you see the board. You need to forget about the way you've been playing Scrabble up until now if you want to play competitively. And
Absolutely.
then you relearn the game according to how the experts are doing it. Um, I never play a blank for less than 50 points, 50.
Okay.
That's hard for a lot of new novice players. If they can get 25, 30 points, they give it up. You're giving it up too quickly. And some people will say, well, I haven't had a good word. Now they're thinking that good is in terms of length of the word. So they might use it in the word stain and make 18 points. Whereas they could have, if they didn't play the A, they could have played tin for 10 points and kept the blank.
Got it.
Let the
Okay.
blank hang around with you while you're playing off, when you're playing off tiles. I am always playing off tiles, imagining what I can get when I draw my new tiles. So you're always thinking about the next turn while you're playing this turn. I don't know how many of the folks out there play the game of chess, but the best chess players think 2, 3, 4 moves ahead.
Right.
They can close their eyes and sort of visualize, if I move here, my opponent will probably move here, and you do that sort of thing. When you're playing Scrabble to win, to compete, you might play off one word that creates a hook for you to play an even better word the next time. And the blank is part of playing the longer words, the bingos in the game. Another thing people give up is the S. S is a great letter because it hooks onto all the nouns
Right.
and to many of the other words on the board. You should get at least 30 points for your S. And some people will play a word and give it up for 15 or 20 points. You're cheating yourself. Now, there is an exception, and there's an exception to a lot of rules. If you have more than one S, too much of a good thing is a bad thing,
Right.
okay? Sometimes you can end up with 3 S's, and I've even had 4 S's on my rack.
Wow.
Even though the S is important, when you get 2 or 3 or 4, they're in the way
Yep.
of making other words. So in that case, you can play it off for 10 points. I wouldn't trade it because I don't want my opponent to pick it.
Right.
So I look for a place to play it off. Like if I wanted, if I had 4 S's, I could play SOS. Did you know that was a word?
I don't think I knew it was a real word. No.
Okay. So that's one. Or you could make a word that ends with LESS. Or
Okay.
maybe a word that begins and ends
With
with
an S.
S, like signs, SINES, SIGNS. Uh, so that's something that I make sure this was one of the points on the things that I want to learn. Let's see. Then there are letters that are worth more points than the others. There are 5 of them: the K, the J, the Q, the X, and the Z.
Right.
You want to know as many words that have that letter in them. Now, you'll learn the 2s. You might want to spend some time learning the 3s, but you definitely want to make a point of learning the 5-letter words. Now, if you look at your Scrabble board, the way the hot spots are laid out, many of the hot spots from the first one to the last one, either going horizontally or vertically, are 5 spaces apart. So you want to know many words that you can hit those 2 hot spots
Sure.
with the first letter on one and the last letter on the other. And people don't always think about that. And there are a few spots on the board where from the double word score, the closest hotspots to it is a triple letter score. So now imagine the words that begin with J that are 5 letters long, where you could have the J on a triple letter and the last letter hitting the double word. So now the J by itself is worth 48 points.
Right.
And you can score words with the Z or the Q that might be 60, 70, 80 points with a 5-letter word, and a 70-point 5-letter word is valuable as a bingo. So you need that kind of information in your arsenal of words. And so now you've got all these pieces that you want to pay attention to. You've got them prioritized in some way. You begin your regiment, you go to the club maybe once a week, once every other week. When you're playing at club, keep an accurate score sheet. There's space on most sheets to write the number for the score you get. And right next to it, there's usually a space to write the word. During this period that you're studying, especially when you're a novice, write your word down. When
Okay.
your opponent plays a word, if it's new to you, write the word down. At the end of the evening, most clubs play 3 or 4 games. Don't throw your score sheets out. Take them home with you. You might have a page in your own notebook, new words that I learned, and record them there. You might do this just as soon as you get home. You might save it till the next period when you're studying. But now you're going to develop a list of words that you learned. You might do this on a computer. Use an Excel spreadsheet.
Right.
And the interesting thing you can do here now is you don't, when you're writing it, you always put the word down at the bottom of the
Right.
list. If I'm doing it on the computer, I can stick it in anywhere on the list.
Right.
And so I create this list alphabetically. So we can all do that. And that's really a great thing to have. And you have more uh, columns if you're doing it on Excel. So you might put down who played that against you.
Okay.
You might put down the date of when it occurred. Um, and then if it's new to you, I would even put it on a flashcard. And once a day, I'm going to build up a stack of flashcards and just look at them. Just take 5 minutes and go through flipping the flashcards and looking at them. And then next week, when you're playing at that club, try to play some of the new words, even though it might not give you a score. And if you really want to win every game when you sit down, playing these words isn't going to help you win that game necessarily, but playing them will cement them in your memory.
Exactly. Exactly.
So we have to allow ourselves to build our memory by doing these steps. And so it's not always about winning. Um, if you if you can build the memory, let's say if you are being competitive, you're probably thinking ahead to maybe playing a local tournament. or
Sure.
going away to a tournament. At tournaments, I would say don't notice that word, but don't play it if it doesn't give you as many points as something else that's available to
Sure.
you.
Absolutely.
But you can see how we're building step by step, and we're becoming better and better and better, and our memory's getting bigger and bigger, and we're seeing things that maybe last month we wouldn't even notice.
Absolutely.
And so we're doing all of this, and let's say one of the things we've been doing for a couple weeks is learning the two-letter words. Well, you have to have some tools to measure your growth, being it's two-letter words or being a stem or whatever. For two-letter words, I would, on a separate sheet of paper, write the alphabet from A to Z. Have a timer with you. Start the timer. Once you begin, next to the letter A, write all the two-letter words that begin with A, then all the two-letter words with B, C, D, E, etc. When you get through to Z, if there's no more you can think of, stop the timer. See what the time on the timer is. I've spent 8 minutes. Record 8 minutes. Now take out your two-letter list and compare it to what you wrote down. I had 75 right. I had 4 things there that are not two-letter words. And what did I miss? If I had 75 right, I have 32 that I missed. Have that all marked down. Next week, test yourself again. The next week, test yourself again. You want to be able to achieve all 107 two-letter words correctly in less than 5 minutes. And you will accomplish that. It might take you 2 months. It might take you 2 years. But each time you're going to get better and better. And those two-letter words, not just that you're going to play a two-letter word, but it's going to help you hook this bingo that you got to some
Mhm.
other spot on the board by creating these two-letter words that it allows it to fit. And that's why it's so important. Some people that are new to the game, they can't figure, Gary, why are we spending all this time on the two-letter words? Well, you have to master them. If you don't, you're missing out on being able to play the longer words that you find on your rack, because everything must connect.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. One of the things that I've learned is that and I see it better vertically than I do horizontally. And I
Uh-huh.
don't know if that's a trait for other people, but I'll see those two-letter words vertically, and then I'll realize, wow, I have a five-letter word, but I'm getting all those extra points because I've made two-letter words up against it.
Absolutely.
Now I'm trying to train myself to see it horizontally, which
Hmm.
it for some reason I don't see it as easily.
What if you turn the board so you're not looking on it straight on?
Well, I'm talking about playing like on the computer, so
Okay.
I wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah.
Oh, you have a desktop?
Yep.
Oh, what if you stood on your head?
Oh, I could try doing that. My
Uh,
husband and son will be very concerned about me though.
oh, okay. Um, I'd like to make a recommendation of a movie to watch. I don't know if you noticed.
I noticed you put that out there. I just finished it.
You did. Did you
It's
like it?
The Queen's Gambit. It was wonderful.
Okay. Anyone listening to it, The Queen's Gambit. It's not about
A queen.
Scrabble at all. It's about chess. Um, I know a lot of Scrabble players that are just like main character in the movie, um, she is a chess master, and she can visualize 3, 4, 5 steps ahead
Right.
on the board. And truly, the Scrabble masters can do that sort of thing. And, it, sometimes you think you can, and then your opponent blocks that spot.
Right.
But you see the whole board. That's one skill that many people who have played at home, they come to club and they've never even considered that skill, seeing the whole board.
Right.
They don't even see the board. They'll look at the board, they don't even see the hot spots. And as when I'm teaching and we're in the same room together, because a lot of times I'm teaching online, um, I'll stop and I'll pause the clock and I'll say, well, what about this spot? And it's not unusual for someone to say, oh, I never saw that. Uh, just sitting there staring at the board without any tiles on it, that is a valuable exercise. Go home and look at your Scrabble board and see all the places that are 5 spots away from one hot spot to the other. Take a look where the triple word scores are. Generally speaking, the highest scoring play is getting a triple triple, which means that your word hits 2 triple letter scores. Well, you're going to tell me, oh, it's 8, they're 8 spots apart. Well, the only way you can play a triple triple is if there's a letter on the board between the 2
Right.
triples. Now, what happens is when you're playing the game, when 90% of the players are playing the game, they see the letter between 2 triples, and the first thing they think of, do I have a word? They're not thinking triple triple. They want to hit one of the triples.
Got it.
The first thing you should do is think about, do I have the combinations on my rack that can make a triple triple? If you're not looking for it, you're never going to see it.
Right.
And that's why a good lesson is just sitting there looking at the board, and try to begin implanting it into your memory. Where is it that you can easily play a double double? There are 4 spots on the board where you can play a double double. There are 8 spots on the board where you can play a triple triple. Most people don't understand that
Yeah.
because they never looked for it.
I've never looked for it. I see the one triple, okay, and I get
Yeah,
all excited. Yeah, I can do that,
yeah,
and I don't look beyond. You're right.
yeah. So it's okay to get excited about using one of the triples, but remember, find your play, pause, look for a better play, and then make your play. So I see how I can use a triple word score. When I pause, I look for a triple triple. They're not that common, a triple triple,
Okay.
but a lot of times you may have it. It might be a word you don't know. So,
Sure.
okay, I don't. So, do you know what I'm going to do if I'm playing this afternoon and there's a letter in between the 2 triples? So I have the possibility of a triple triple. On my scorecard, I'll write down my rack plus the letter that's on the board. And then okay, I can't find it, I give up. So I go on, finish the game. When I get home, I look up that combination, and maybe I didn't know the word, but if I can identify what I missed, especially if I know it was a triple triple,
Sure.
I'm going to remember that. And in one of the last games I played with my friend Maliha, the one who played aesthetically, there was a letter between two triple triples, and it was her turn, and I underestimated her, so I didn't block it, and she played Pharisees. Pharisees is a word that you'll find in the Bible. She's
Okay.
also a religious person who knows that. Another exceptional person was a person who came to my club first time, and she played the word Zelkovas, and everyone in the room was, what in the heck is that? She happened to be a botany major, and that's a flower, Zelkovas, and she played it in a triple triple spot for over 200 points.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, those are, when you look for it, you're going to, one of these times, you're going to be amazed because
Right.
there will be a word that that fits there. And it'll make you get up and do a happy dance right on the spot.
Well, that's always a good thing. You
Yeah,
know, and if people listen to, how they can get better at the game of Scrabble, they can use these same techniques with everything else in life. You know,
absolutely.
I have found some of the things that we've talked about. I never used to be a good news watcher. I would sit there and I would get bored. And so I didn't really hear what was going on. And then I assumed I heard what was going on. But I sort of like you've talked about making this, taking a game and making the learning into another game.
Sure.
I sort of have done that with listening to the news, you know,
Hmm.
oh, what can I relate it to? Um, and it just amazes me that learning anything can be made into something fun and how it keeps your brain active. And
Makes it more meaningful.
I
Right.
absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward now to looking for those triple triples, even if I can't make it in the play, um, because that will at least tell me that I'm expanding my horizons.
Sure.
And I'm sorry I never got to meet your friend Maleha. She sounds like she was an absolute wonderful person. Um, and you've told us about, how she didn't she make a list of words herself?
She not only made a list of words, she became enamored with long words,
That's right. Yeah.
and she created and published a list of long words that has been accepted as the standard in world competition.
Interesting.
And this is a person who didn't know, or English was her second language. And some of the things she did was totally amazing. Her artwork was amazing. She was also a gardener, and at her home, she had a 1 acre plot behind it where she would graft uh, fruit trees,
Wow.
and it was an amazing place. I actually was honored to house sit for her once when she and her husband went off on a trip. I sat for a week, and it took me 2 hours every day to water her garden. But it was an amazing place to just sit on a bench among all of these creations of hers. And yeah, she loved gardening so much. She made she compiled another book that are strictly plants and flowers and trees that are legal Scrabble words. And I
Wow.
have a copy of that book too, which is kind of amazing. Whatever your interest is, you can go through the dictionary and find words that relate to it. Whether you're you love your wardrobe, or you love uh, history, or you love something else, you'll find hundreds of words related to your area of interest.
Absolutely.
And many of those, like Zelkova, who else in the
Well,
club would
good on
know
you.
that? That's right.
Well, again, I want to thank you for a great podcast this week, and we'll be back again next week, and we'll keep sharing words with everybody out there. So,
Okay, stay safe.
you too, have a great day. Bye bye
Bye
now.
bye.